Okay. Okay, good morning, everyone. I'd like to call to order our regular meeting of Tuesday, February the 2nd, 2021 at 10 a.m. We have all three supervisors here in Globe. Chairman Humphrey, Vice Chair Supervisor Christensen, and Supervisor Woody Klein. So great to have us all here. We're going to get started. We're going to Scott Busan, if you'd say, lead us with a Pledge of Allegiance, and then we'll have an invocation given by Isaac Bradford and Payson. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, well, if you would bow your heads with me. God, we come before you this morning, and we're asking for your help. We're asking for your wisdom. Lord, we don't want to do anything without you in our personal lives. Lord, we need your mercy and your grace. And in governing, Lord, we need your mercy and grace. Your word says, if anyone lacks wisdom, let him ask the Father who gives freely, and we are in that place of wanting your wisdom, wanting your direction, wanting your guidance. We need you. And so I ask that your blessing and your spirit and presence would be in this place over all the decisions, all the discussions. I ask this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you very much. Okay, we will start with 2A, presentation regarding Gila County financial data as of November 30th, 2020. As it compares to the fiscal year 2021 Gila County budget for fiscal year 2020 year-to-date performance. Mayor Billings, good morning.
Good morning. How are you, Mr. Chairman?
Well, I'll know more after you. No, I'm kidding. I'm fine, thank you.
Okay, in that case, you should wait 2 weeks until I present December, right? So we are here this morning with our end of November results. There's a couple different attachments to this agenda item. One is our usual bar chart, and then what we have up here now, that's perfect. The bar chart shows us where we are year to date compared to last year, compared to full budget, and compared to where we would be if all of our expenses and revenues were flat throughout the year. So when you're looking at this bar chart, the bars on the far left of each grouping are 100% of budget for fiscal year 2021. The red bars immediately to their right are where we actually are as of November 30th, 2021. In this instance, for salaries and employee-related expenses, we were at 34% of budget, which compares to 42%, which is where we should have been if everything was flat and we hit 100% of budget every year. So that's the green bar in each group. And then for salaries and EREs, that purple bar, that's the last one in that group, that shows 36%. That's where we were a year ago, November 30th. So salaries and EREs are a little behind where they were a year ago, and they are below budget for where budget should be. Operating expenses is your next group of bars. We are, at the end of November, we were at 48% of budget as compared to 42% of the year. So we were a little ahead. We expected that. And then when you come over to the third group of bars, it shows that our total expenses, which combines the salaries and EREs and the operating expenses, those 39% of budget. So overall, the expenses are below where we would expect to be. We would expect to be at 42% of budget, but we do split it out here every month between salaries and EREs and operating expenses so that you have a more accurate picture of where those dollars go. And then on the far right over here, we have our revenue year to date. At the end of November, we were at 50% of the budgeted revenue for fiscal year 2021. We would expect to be again at 42%. And our 50% year-to-date revenue at November 30th is ahead of where we were at November 30th of the prior year when we were at 47% of revenue. So the big takeaways from this are that total expenditures at the end of November were at 39% of budget and revenue was at 50% of budget. And if we go over to the narrative, which is the other attachment, we try to provide you with ongoing information that's useful to you in your day-to-day conversations and in your decision-making. On this, we show the top 5 revenue items experiencing an increase compared to last year. And I think it's, there we go. Okay. So property taxes are almost 1.4 million ahead of where they were last year. And you can see following down that, intergovernmental agreements, auto lieu tax, state shared sales tax, and miscellaneous. The asterisk next to miscellaneous directs us down to a chart at the bottom. When we reported our October year-to-date results, you all asked that I bring data about what made up that miscellaneous number. We provided it by email for October, but we started adding it to the report here. So as you can see, those items that make up most of the miscellaneous amount are things like elections reimbursement for the presidential preference election. That only happens once every 4 years, so that's a miscellaneous. Human Resources received some money from DES as a reimbursement for CARES Act costs. Finance received some funding that came in from ADEQ and the state treasurer for the former Hayden Restaurant and Hotel. The Sheriff's Department received search and rescue reimbursement. There's one item here that you can see for $28,000, and we've gotten 2 or 3 more of those payments since November 30th. We also have Superior Court. They got reimbursed for some vacation payout, and then there was a reclassification that helped balance out that total. So this represents a little over 90% of what that miscellaneous is. And this doesn't include items that we do every year. For example, we get the circuit breaker money from the state for EORP, right? Like that was budgeted. That doesn't affect how this miscellaneous number comes out higher than the prior year. So all told, when you get down to the very bottom line, we are seeing that year to date, we are experiencing a net increase to the bottom line in general fund of just about $2 million compared to where we were last year. So that was a lot of words to get you to $2 million added to the bottom line.
Okay, thank you. Supervisor Christian, you have any questions, comments?
No,
Okay.
Supervisor Klein, questions, comments?
On our operating side of it, do we have any reason why we're up a little higher on that?
I can look and see specifically what those are.
I'm just curious.
Sure, no problem. I will look into it and let you know.
Thank you, Mayor. And other than that, good job. Thank you.
I just have a comment too.
Sure.
For everybody that was listening and me too, because property taxes are up. And so everybody thinks that we keep raising our property taxes. Our property taxes have not been raised.
Correct.
In over 10 years.
Correct.
And a lot of that raise in property tax is due to our planning and zoning department with new building permits, because we are adding new buildings, new construction that we are getting property taxes from. We're not raising existing property taxes.
That's a good clarification.
So, yeah, I just wanted to clarify that to the public, because we get criticized all the time for raising taxes, and we have not.
Very
and so if we see an increase in our taxes that's not due to the college or someone raising their taxes withheld, then it's our raise in taxes are for new construction. So I just wanted to clarify
You know what?
that.
And
So
I'll
thank you.
add that to the chart for the future. I'll leave a note that shows how much of that is from new construction, as you said, right? Because it's really easy to add that. And how much of it is due just to timing of people paying their taxes more timely.
Sure.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
some
I'll
people
add
pay
that.
it all up front, some do every 6 months, but we have been an all-time high or really high for building permits,
Yes.
which is hats off to planning and zoning because they're doing a great job of helping people get their building permits. And we're getting people to build, and that's helping us financially.
Excellent. I
Okay.
will improve that.
Thank you
Mr.
very
Chairman?
much for your presentation. Yes.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, just one slight thank you, Marin. Appreciate all you do. And Mary and the Finance Department, you are doing a tremendous job. I have reported in the past few weeks that we are caught up with our audits, and so thank you to this team for what they've accomplished. Did want to say one thing about Marin. She, bless her, she said that we were behind in our salaries a little bit less. I would call that ahead because we have reduced our expenses in salaries, and that is because when we hit the coronavirus, we made the administrative determination that we were going to leave positions vacant as long as we could. So we evaluate every position that we have, and maybe we can leave it vacant for 3 months or 6 months. We staff are stressed all around, particularly in the health department, but all around the county because we are leaving positions vacant, and it's showing up by the reduced salaries. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Well, thank you very much. Okay, moving on to regular agenda item 3A. Information, discussion, action to approve funding agreement number 20421 between the Arizona Department of Housing and Gila County Community Service Department Housing Services to provide Southwest Gas Corporation Weatherization Assistance Program funding in the amount of $18,490 that will be used to provide weatherization services to eligible citizens residing in Gila County for the period of January 1st, 2021 through December 31st, 2021. Melissa Buzan, good morning, and you're going to be here for a while, so
Yeah, I'll just get comfortable.
good morning.
Good morning, Chairman Humphrey and members of the board. I knew I was going to do that. Supervisor Christensen, Supervisor Klein. So Southwest Gas is part of the whole package that we do with our weatherization program. So we have Department of Energy dollars, LIHEAP dollars, which is an acronym for basically heating and energy assistance for low-income people, Southwest Gas, and Arizona Public Service. So this is a contract that comes to us through Housing Services. They're on a calendar year, so that's why I'm not here during the summer upgrading my DOE and LIHEAP. We're already using those, and this is for Southwest Gas customers.
Thank you.
So if you have any questions.
Supervisor Christensen, do you have any questions or comments?
Yeah. So forgive my ignorance. So this dollar amount, 18,000 something, is that some money that we're receiving, or is that money we are spending?
That's money that we spend. That's money that we get reimbursed for. When we go out into a home and do an energy audit, what we call an energy audit, that information and that data gives us what we can spend for one. It's a payback kind of a program. So we might upgrade the furnace. If it's a gas furnace and they're a Southwest Gas customer, we would upgrade the furnace. We would put insulation in the house. We would tighten up the windows, not always replace windows. It's just an overall energy program that saves low-income families dollars on a monthly basis.
Okay, and so $18,490. How did we?
So the funding formula is so the county, or Southwest Gas and Arizona Department of Housing, looks at the county and how many customers they have, and then how many low-income customers they have, and they give us kind of a figure that way. It's not a lot of money, but it does really, we leverage a lot of dollars and a lot of other program money into that house. So more often than not, we spend maybe $14,000 to $15,000 on a house just doing energy efficient measures. And part of that package, if they're a Southwest Gas customer, is this $18,000. Some dollars for this example is we don't get a lot of admin, but our admin comes in a bigger package on our Department of Energy dollars. So that pays for staff, that pays for work, and then Southwest Gas comes in and maybe does half of the furnace or a new duct system. Because the ducts can be really leaky, and the furnace is okay and it's working, but the duct system's so leaky we need to replace that.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Supervisor Klein?
I'm good. Thank you, Melissa.
Right,
Good
thank
job.
you.
Yeah, I don't have any questions, and thank you, Melissa. And so we will go on to regular agenda item 3B.
We
Oh.
need a motion.
Okay. I'll ask for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move
Before
to
I
approve
move on.
funding agreement number 204-21.
Second.
Having a motion and a second, all in favor do so by saying aye.
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 Aye. Okay, item was approved. Now I'll move on to regular agenda item 3B. Information, discussion, action to approve amendment number 19 to an agreement for energy-wise low-income weatherization program implementation between the Gila County Community Service Department, Housing Services, and Arizona Public Service Company to allocate $90,000 for calendar year January 1st, 2021 through December 31st, 2021, and to make some other minor changes. Again, Melissa.
Good morning. Yes, this agreement that if you approve will again assist us with putting dollars together in homes. Some of the reason that this is quite a bit more than is because all of Gila County is under Arizona Public Service. So we get a bigger slice of the pie, so to speak. And so this goes along with our Southwest Gas, with our Department of Energy dollars, and those LIHEAP dollars I talked about. These two programs, just as a side note, they are under governance of the Corporation Commission. So some of that funding formula and the amount that we get comes straight from the commission. Sometimes, or not sometimes, all the time I advocate for bigger pieces of the pie. If we can spend these dollars down quicker than some other county or some other community action program, then we can get additional, and you'll see me come before the board for additional dollars that, we're scrambling, and if we can spend that money, the more money that we get into Gila County, the better, for contractors, for families, seniors. So anyway, that's just a side note.
Thank you. Supervisor Christensen, do you have any comments or questions?
No, I don't. Thank you for the presentation.
Supervisor Klein?
Melissa, we've never had enough money
No.
compared to the demand, right? I mean,
Right. It's just the nature of the beast, and unfortunately, we we're at about 10% this year. I kind of try to always figure that out. We used to be at 6%, now we're about 10%, 12% of those that are eligible throughout the county. That's the amount we can help. Just 12% of the eligible population. So we do have waiting lists for weatherization. It's about 2 years now. If there's an emergency in between, you'll see me here for emergency dollars for approval. We do emergency dollars to try to just, brace the wall, so to speak, until we can get there with weatherization and or housing rehab. So.
well, thank you for everything you're doing. I appreciate it.
Oh, okay, I have no questions. Okay, so we'll call for a motion before we move on.
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, I move to approve amendment number 19 to an agreement for energy-wise low-income weatherization program implementation.
Mr. Chair, I'll second that.
Having a motion and a second, all in favor do so by saying aye.
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 Aye. Okay, regular agenda item 3C, information discussion action to approve funding agreement number 135-21 between Gila County and the Arizona Department of Housing to receive community development block grant funds in the amount of $74,542 for the period of January 15th, 2021 through March 15th, 2022 in order to rehabilitate at least 5 eligible homes. Again, Melissa.
Thank you. This program, and I'm asking for your approval today, is a community development block grant. It comes down through the states in rural areas where our population is not at about 75,000 or so. We get it through the State Department, the money funnels from the feds into our State Department of Housing and then to us. So, and this money in particular comes through the CAG program, those programs that they're Council of Governments all over the state. So because we're smaller, we get it through our Council of Governments. We get these dollars. We have to write for them every year, but it's pretty much designated for us. We took a hit in this in the last couple of years as other places in the CAG area, which is Pinal County, they've gone what they call entitlement straight from the feds, so we lose a little percentage. This I generally use for roofs. It's under $10,000 if we can do it on a smaller house. We do a new roof, and then we kind of start at the top, and we use this with our weatherizations. A new roof, new duct system, insulation, that kind of stuff, and then we move down.
Okay, thank you. Supervisor Christensen, questions?
No questions, thank you.
Supervisor Klein?
Thank you, Chairman. James, how can we push for more money out of these programs?
We will need to continue to research and look for the different sources available. These are federal dollars for the most part that we are using. They are, I don't necessarily say that they're subsidized, but all of the dollars that we get are going into the programs. We pay from the general fund the salaries and administrative for at least a portion of these grants. And so the dollars that we get are going into what we have, but we need to continue to work with our folks that are our legislative representatives, liaisons, and continue to search for those things, and also work with our legislative delegation from here in Arizona.
So, like for the last 4 years, we've sat here and watched this money just get little less, where we get a few houses done, we help a few families, but with us being a rural county and everything, I can't help but think there ought to be something we can do to twist some ears somewhere to kick in a few more dollars to get us up. Even another 25% would help. Whatever we could get. And so if, like Melissa's saying, this is federal dollars that come down through CAG, you said, and then or through the state, either one. I mean, if we need to go through our legislative folks there in the state, I think that's good. But maybe this is something we can sick Patty Powers on in D.C. to start trailing it down too and see what kind of money is there and see what we can find out.
Absolutely. We need to increase our efforts, and we'll do so.
Thank you, James. Thank you, Melissa.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you, Melissa, for all the programs that you deal with and the funding programs that you work with every day to help the needy in Gila County. And the thing of it is the majority of this money goes to homeowners. Is that not correct? Do they own? They have to own their home?
Weatherization can be rentals.
Okay.
We do have to have landlords sign off, and we don't do a lot like a new roof. Those are some things that landlords just have to take care of themselves.
Right.
It can even be the furnaces and stuff. And we have gone in cooperation or a partnership, so to speak, with a landlord to say, if you do this, we'll do this for your house. But you also have to not raise the rent for a couple of years on us, because you have all these upgrades. So.
Right. Okay. Thank you very much for all you do. Okay, if that's all, I will call for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve funding agreement number 135-21.
I will second that, Mr. Chairman.
Having a motion and a second, all in favor do so by saying aye.
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 Aye. Item was approved.
Thank you.
Moving on to 3D.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
For Supervisor Christian, can I make a comment about some of the other things that Melissa and Community Services Department do?
Sure.
That they are in the process of looking or creating a space for the homeless and temporary housing, so that we find a family that is without any accommodations at all, that she'll be able to provide temporary living space. So that is a great thing that we're looking for. Melissa has been the lead to form a coalition on the homeless in Gila County, and that's for the entire county of representatives from all different walks of life throughout the county to address homelessness. And so that's what this Housing Heroes Award was for, was the coalition and the efforts that have been made for the housing. And in addition to the rehabilitation of homes, weatherization of homes, and other services for the low income. There is a lot of different focus areas that Melissa and her team covers. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, thank you, James. Okay, moving on to 3D. Information discussion action to adopt resolution number 21-02-01, accepting a quitclaim deed for Avail Road in Pine, authorize establishing the road as a primitive road, accepting it into the Gila County Primitive Road System, and authorize the execution of the primitive road easement. Steve Sanders, good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Anvil Road is in Pine off of Hardscrabble Road. It runs north about 1,000 feet. Residents along the road came to us a number of months back and asked us consider taking the road into the system. There was a quitclaim deed from the Randall family that we had found for the road. This will allow us, if you accept it into the system, to designate it primitive and begin to maintain it and provide maintenance for the people that live along the road. Happy to answer any questions you have.
Supervisor Christensen, any questions, comments?
So this is a privately held road currently?
Yes and no, Supervisor. The Randall family dedicated it to the public through a quitclaim deed in the 70s. The county never accepted it. The assessor never really recognized it, and it's just kind of been out in no man's land.
Okay.
We find a number of those in different outlying areas. We have one in Young we're dealing with right now.
Okay.
Stuff. So it's not unusual to find this,
Okay. Thank you.
certainly.
Supervisor Klein.
How many of those do you think we have in the county, Steve?
That we've come across 6 or 7 in the last 4 or 5 years, so no telling how many's out there. What it goes back to is the people would go in and not subdivide, but just like that right there was a bunch of lot splits prior to any kind of jurisdiction from the state or mandate, and they would just dedicate the road to the public and walk away from it.
Right.
So lots of them.
Well, thanks. That's it.
Yeah, and thank you, because a lot of those lots are being sold and being built on, so we have constituents in places that we didn't have before, which is making some of this problem come to light, and I appreciate you very much for working with it. And if that's all the comments, I'll call for a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move to adopt resolution number 21-02-01.
And Mr. Chair, I'll second that.
Having a motion and a second, all in favor do so by saying aye.
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 Aye. Item was approved. Going on to 3E, information discussion action to authorize the advertisement of invitation for bid number 082320 Mesa del Caballo paving project. Steve?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, board members. Mesa Del is north of Payson off the Houston Mesa Road. It's a rather sizable subdivision. The roads in it are paved. This will be the third project in the area. This will be include repaving, new paving, drainage improvements, culverts to the main road in, and then the road that runs in front of the fire department. It's about almost half a mile in length, the total amount of the road. Happy to answer any questions you have.
Supervisor Christensen, questions, comments?
So the Yes, so the road is deteriorating. I've been there.
Yes.
And this is just part of a maintenance process, improvement.
Yeah, Chairman Humphrey, Supervisor Christensen, this is more of a new, we're taking everything out and coming in with new pavement instead of trying to maintain what's there. Coming back with better subgrade, try to address some of the clay that's in the area, improve the drainage.
So this is a resolution to seek bids.
It's asking permission to go out to bids. We have plans ready, and yes.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Sanders.
Supervisor Klein?
Steve, this is what, if this goes through, you'll be scheduled for next summer. Is that what you're looking at?
This coming summer.
Yeah, this coming
Yes.
summer. Good deal. Thanks.
And just a question, do we have other projects in that reasonable area that we're going to work on as well? So when we put out for bid, they can maybe work with multiple projects or just a project? Or
We're just focused on this one at this time in this area. There's other projects to develop, but they're still in the planning stages.
Okay. Okay, thank you. No further questions, and I'll call for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I'll make the motion to authorize the advertisement of invitation for bids number 082320.
I will second that, Mr. Chairman.
Having a motion and a second, all in favor do so by saying aye.
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 Aye. Item was approved.
Thank you.
Thank you. One more, Steve. No, two more.
Couple more. Yes.
Okay, couple more. Okay, 3F, information discussion action to review all bids submitted for invitation for bid number 112920, replacement of 6 Sheriff's Office patrol vehicles, award to the lowest responsible and qualified bidder, and authorize the chairman's signature on the award contract for the winning bidder. Again, Steve.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Last December, we went out to bid for these 6 replacement vehicles. And the vehicles that we're replacing are old, above 200,000 miles, costing a lot of money in repairs and equipment. We received 2 bids, the lowest bid being Tom Jones Ford. Recommend that you award to them for the amount in the item.
Okay, any questions, Supervisor Christensen?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. No, I don't have any questions.
Supervisor Klein?
No, I don't believe I do. Thanks, Steve.
On these older vehicles, Steve, do we trade those in, or are they going to be on an auction?
Chairman Humphrey, they'll go to auction once we start back having auctions.
Okay, thank you. No further questions, and I'll call for motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move to award a contract to Tom Jones Ford LLP in the amount of $386,272.11 in response to invitation for bids number 112920.
Mr. Chair, I'll second that.
Motion and a second. All in favor do so by saying aye.
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 Aye. Item was approved. One more, Steve. 3G, information, discussion, action to review all bids submitted for invitation for bid number 113020, replacement of 1 Sheriff's Office CJEF Criminal Justice Enhancement Fund vehicle, award to the lowest responsible and qualified bidder, and authorize the chairman's signature on the award contract for the winning bid.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, board members. This is basically mirrors the previous item, except the funding source is different. So we come to you as a standalone contract request. This will replace a high mileage vehicle that the sheriff is using, over 200,000 miles. Again, costing a lot of money in repairs, fuel. And it will also, the vehicle will be replaced at auction, or disposed of at auction, so we don't increase the size of our fleet. Happy to answer any questions you have.
Thank you, Steve. Supervisor Christensen, questions?
Thank you. No questions.
Steve,
Supervisor Klein?
Tom Jones Ford, are they in Cholo?
Buckeye.
Buckeye, okay. All right, thank you.
Okay, if there's no further questions, I'll call for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I make the motion to award a contract to Tom Jones Ford LLP in the amount of $52,999.15 in response to invitation for bids number 113020.
I will second that, Mr. Chairman.
Having a motion second, all in favor do so by saying aye.
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 Aye. Item was approved.
Thank you.
Thank you, Steve, very much. Okay, moving on to agenda item 4, consent agenda action items. Does anyone care to take off any of these consent agenda items and discuss them as a regular action item? Supervisor
No,
Brown,
sir.
neither one?
No.
Okay, I wish to take none off. I just want to add a boy, quick claim deed for over-the-counter sale for another tax property. Marion and Melissa, thank you very, very much for keeping these properties active and going. And it's nice to find these abandoned properties a new home, so thank you very much. Okay, if there's nothing else, I'll call for a motion to accept.
Mr. Chairman, I'll move to approve consent agenda items 4A through 4I.
And Mr. Chair, I'll second that.
Having a motion and a second, all in favor do so by saying aye.
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 Aye. Okay, moving on to 5, call to the public. Is there any public in Payson that would care to comment to the board today?
It snowed.
Well, thank you for that. Is there any public in Payson that would care to elaborate on the snow? Is that a no?
No, sir, there is not.
Okay, thank you very much. Do we have anybody on, nobody from the public here that would care to on YouTube, and no one here in the chamber? So, okay. No call to the public, and our mayor did not show. Okay, so okay, at any time during we'll move on to 6, agenda item 6. At any time during the meeting pursuant to ARS 38-431.02K, members of the Board of Supervisors and County Manager may present a brief summary of current events. No action may be taken on item presented. And I always forget James, so our County Manager. So, Mr. Minlow, would you care to go first so I don't forget you?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm not going to take Supervisor Christensen's thunder, but I did want to say that both of us, Supervisor Christensen and I, were on KMOG yesterday. There was a particular issue that the radio host hammered us on a little bit, and it was a contract that was awarded related to COVID. And the insinuation was that we were had inappropriately awarded a contract to a former employee of Gila County. And I did want to point this out, and I think it probably needs to go out on KMOG as well. But I've got the folder of the contract, this award of services, and Mary can fill me in a little bit more. She's the one that did it, but was a fully developed request for proposals. We got 3 respondents of sealed competitive bids, and of those sealed competitive bids, the low bidder was awarded that contract. Some of the bids, the couple of other bids that there were a couple $100,000 higher, and even the third one up to $500,000 more than what the successful bidder was awarded. Mr. Chairman, I apologize, but I'm going to say it, that I consider this tabloid journalism from KMOG, and it should be an embarrassment to them that they are distributing untruths and insinuating and putting out on the public that Gila County in any way is doing anything that would be fraudulent or inappropriate. You as a board that have been here know that we have established a strategic plan. We have established financial policies that we follow in all that we do. So if that comes up while you're up in the northern parts of the county, of what are we doing, I have the documentation here. We'll put together a complete story for you, but we went through all the process of a sealed bid for these. The lowest, most responsible bidder was awarded the contract. That is the end of the story. So, that's it, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's going to be a hard act to follow. Vice Chairman Christensen, do you have something to share with us today?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Manager Menlove, you could never steal my thunder. It's my intention to continue working with KMOG to resolve any misunderstandings that the county is doing. So I look forward to doing that and continuing to do that. Yeah, some of the questions were hard, and it was an insinuation that there was impropriety. So I will like to grab a copy of that, and then I will address that with them. Okay? And it did snow.
Thank you. This was fresh out in the air, and I don't know if there's anybody in Payson listening to this, but it needed to be stated. And any insinuations of improprieties by the county are false.
Right, right. Well, as we discussed privately, there's always a cynicism toward government, and I want to dispel that in the north, throughout the county, that we are obeying all laws and we are not showing favoritism or in any way. I think the question really was, this is a high number. What are we getting for that? Is the cost to value there? And so I want to try and address that. So I'll be talking to you later about that.
All of those things are included in the contract. So
Okay.
There are an exceptionally large amount of deliverables with this contract. So not to belabor that, but I fully support that we need to get out and be able to tell Gila County and what we are doing. So I fully support whatever media outlets that you have and working with them and telling the Gila County story, that we are here to serve the public. You are sitting in your seats and committing all your time and efforts to serve the public, do everything you can to improve the quality of life for those
Right.
people. So that is our mission, that is our goal, and that is it.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Menlove. Yeah, I plan on being on both of our radio stations and in the paper till people are sick of hearing me and seeing me. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's all I have.
Okay, well, thank you. Supervisor Klein.
James, I guess I'm up on next on KMOG, so I'm probably going to need a rundown on that one because I'm sure it isn't dead yet. But what we proposed on KMOG is exactly for this kind of stuff. That's why we put it together to begin with, is we fought this fight in the fall going through our elections, and it was horrible in Payson. It was unbelievable. And that's why when we turned around and worked with the radio station was to get us on there routinely to head these kind of things off, because I don't see it, unfortunately, quitting anytime soon. And so somewhere along the way, I'll need to get with you on that and get a rundown for my up and coming one. But so on Friday, January 29th, I attended the Legislative Policy Committee, is on phone. When I agreed to take that committee, I wasn't real sure what I was getting into. And now that I am, if anybody wants to trade me places, you can. But no, it's really good, but there's a lot to it. There's a lot more to it than I thought there would be. So, but I learned a lot, and we're going to be working hard on that again this week. So Our Hayden Motel, like you seen on the screen here with finance a while ago, it's just about done. We're in the final stages of getting the ramadas put up on that. That'll be done. Also, there's going to be some of those ramadas put up over the Boys and Girls Club here in Globe and at the little park over here behind East Globe. And those ramadas all came to us free from the Forest Service, from the lake. And so what it's cost us is the taking down and bringing them and putting them up. But that's just about to be done. Tomorrow, we have a meeting in Sonoyta. And this meeting is with Boulder Crest. And it's one of the only outfits in Arizona that have the retreat set up like what we're trying to do in Young with the admin site. So we'll be down there. We're set up for like 2 or 3 hours, 2 hours, I guess, to visit with these folks. I really want to visit with them and learn about their processes and how they designed their boards and all of that, and really get to know those people more. We've looked at them on the internet. Seemed like a real neat place. Looked like they got all their ducks in a row and going good. Really pretty country. So I'm looking forward to this meeting so we can go on with our admin site. And we are working now. We should have the draft permit on that site anytime. And Kathy has been developing the business plan on that. She's got it drafted. And I believe today we'll be working with you two or one of you on showing you that and going over stuff. So we're going on with this, and it's going to work. It's going to work good. We have a vaccine clinic set up in Pleasant Valley for Thursday. They're going up there with 50 doses. I hope that goes well. It's being put out all over town, so I'm hoping that's going to do well. We had one in Hayden down there. They were able to give out 70 vaccinations. And so that was a pretty good turnout. And they're going to be headed back to Hayden here in the future to do more. Also, I'd like to extend my condolences to the vice mayor in Hayden, Bobby Smith. His father passed away of COVID not very long ago. So my condolences goes out to him. And that's it. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, you bet. Well, it sounds, most of my district's down south, but it sounds like I'm going to have to set up a schedule for KMOG as well. Anyway, Supervisor Klein, on those ramadas, you said they're about ready to be taken down and reconstructed. Who and what's
They're down.
They're down. And the reconstruction, is that going to be volunteer? Or?
No, that was contracted through, what was it, their actual name? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah, no, just a
Yeah.
question I had on who's going to help with that. Okay, yeah. Well, I put together a compost project meeting, still working on trying to work on composting and see if that's going to be feasible and something that we can go forward with. Attended a Central Arizona Government Regional Council meeting. Attended a CSA Board of Directors meeting by phone. We'll be holding a Tano Basin community meeting this evening, and the public meetings are back open. Also, too, we're going to be doing a clinic in Tano Basin. I'm not going to say when because I want the people from Tano Basin to get the vaccine, not people from Globe driving out there. Not that we don't love you, but there'll be schedules here for. But anyway, we're going to be doing one in Tano Basin. And then on Thursday, we'll meet with Senator Mark Kelly on the COVID situation, and he's wanting to know how he can help with funding and things of that nature. So we're scrambling. It's been short notice to put together a team with emergency services, finances, and everybody to try to meet with him so we can give him some picture of what the financial and some of the responsibilities of emergency services, trying to set these up, because we get a lot of vaccine, but people don't realize we're working with community partners, and it takes a lot of talent and organizing to set up these vaccination clinics. And so it would be nice for a senator to realize that, okay, we'll double the vaccinations. Well, sometimes that's not possible to have a facility and staff to double the vaccinations. And so it'll be a nice meeting to meet with him. We appreciate him coming to the county and seeing how can I help you. And so that's all I have. If it stirred other questions, go
Yeah, I
ahead.
got a question for you, Tim. So this meeting with Senator Kelly, is that specifically for Gila County, or is that for all 15 counties in Arizona?
No, that's for meeting with Gila County.
Okay, good. So is that posted? We're going to post it,
I think it's
right?
going to be posted. Like I say, we just found out.
Yeah.
And so we're scrambling to put this together, but we are going to put it together, and we're going to have, like I say, people from finance, our major staff that have any hands-on to do with any of the COVID organizations or the finances thereof. We are going to be there, and yes, you get an invitation. It will be posted, and it will be in a big facility, so that it'll be COVID safe, where everybody can be 6 feet apart, but everybody can still be there, and it won't be on YouTube. And I'm not going to tell the place or when, because it's for us to work with him and get our stuff done. And so that's all I have. Did that stir anything for either one of you? No? Okay, then. I will, then we go on to item number 7. We have a work session today. Work session items, information discussion regarding proposed changes to the zoning ordinance for unincorporated areas of Gila County, Arizona. And we have Scott and staff presenting. And Scott, thank you. Thank you.
One quick item before we get going on the ordinance. Excuse me, let me get muffled up. This kind of follow up on what Marion this morning was. I just handed out a spreadsheet that talks about the income for community development, breaking it down from building department and also the overall community development department, which includes at this time wastewater, code enforcement, planning and zoning and such. And I just wanted to show you a little bit on, because Homero, the assistant county manager, had mentioned at the previous meeting we had that he would like me to mention this to you, and that how we are ahead of this time last year by approximately 24% in our income levels. And I want to I have Randy Plummer with me, my building official. I still got to get out of that habit. And I'd like him to come up and talk to you a little bit about why he feels that the building permits are higher at this time versus a year ago, basically almost pre-COVID. There he is.
Morning, Chairman, Supervisors. Just to give you an idea, in 17, we had 69 new single-family homes done. In 18, we had 70 new single-family homes. In 19, we had 69 new single-family homes. And in 20, we had 109 new single-family homes.
That's good.
So approximately a 58% increase in new single-family homes. And one of the things that I'm most proud of is that 95% of those were all done within the 15-day time limit to issue a permit. So even though we've had a substantial increase, staff stepped in and worked hard and got all those plans out and permits issued. So that was just to give you an idea of the difference in the permitting.
Thank you, Randy.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, any questions for Randy or anything on that?
No, I would just like to say thank you very much for that information, and thank you very much for all the work that you have done in planning and zoning. I've been a licensed general contractor in Gila County for about 23 years now, and I can remember when getting a building permit was a little difficult, and not throwing a lot of rocks back then, but what a wonderful thing it is for what you and your staff have done for the planning and zoning department to be able to see these kind of permits be able to go out in a timely manner. Thank you very, very much.
Well, you're very welcome, Mr. Chairman.
So, Mr. Chair, if I may, so right now we're showing a 58% increase. Do you guys think this is what you see so far? Is this going to continue?
Supervisor Lane. So currently, yes. Currently, we have 6 single-family homes on the board. January took a little dip, and I actually expect February to take a little dip just because of the snow and the weather and everything that's occurred. And usually during elections, everyone's trying to figure out what's going on. It slows down. In the past, usually January to April, taxes and everything kind of slows down. Last year, we didn't see any slowdown, actually saw a pickup. And this year, we're seeing the same trend currently. But like I said, I'm kind of expecting a little bit of a slowdown just because of the weather and everything else and what's going on in our country.
You know, and I asked that because, you know, right there in our little town, we had a little over 40 available properties and stuff on the market here a while back. They're down to 11. So it's kind of, I keep looking at it thinking, I don't know if it's going to slow down or not, you know?
It does not show any huge sign, no big dips, but you know, I don't have that crystal ball for the future.
Thank you, Randy.
Yes, sir.
Discover Gila County.
It did, too.
All right, on to the juicy stuff, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. It is my pleasure to be here today to talk to you about some of the staff's proposed changes to the zoning ordinance. As we've discussed, we've had a lot of visits this past year with conditional use permits on homes for increased building height and number of stories versus what the maximum allowed by the zoning ordinance. So what we're here today is to address some of those items to make it, more user-friendly for the public and for staff and for you all as well. I have brought, as you know, Randy is with me today, and also brought Michelle Dahlke, our senior planner, and I'm going to have them both come up and talk to you a little bit so that they can interact with you and give you some insight on why staff has picked these items and go from there. So first is our building heights that we've been dealing with. So currently in the ordinance, it's maximum, most of the use districts is 30-foot maximum. And if you go over that, then if you wish to go over that, then you go through the conditional use permit process. Also, the number of stories is limited to 2 for most of the districts. There's a few, like commercial, there's a few oddities in there. And if you want to go above 2 stories, then the CUP process once again. And as you recall, we were running into a lot of, especially up in the northern part of the county, a lot of the sloped lots we're running into. We're at the up toe of the slope or whatever, it's 2 stories. And when you get down to that walkout basement, we're looking at 3. We're looking at more than 30 foot just from the way it works out. So what staff is proposing is to change that. Oh, also the other important thing is how we measure building height. Right now, in the ordinance, it's kind of an oddity. I don't know where it came from, but it talks about the roof means, which is basically from the top of the peak to the top of the wall or the bottom of the eaves. And then you go the median in there, the mean in there, 50%. That is not a normal way to measure building height. Obviously, when people look at a building, you look at the peak to the ground and you go, that's our height. And with this little oddity that came up. The other deal is it allows for the opportunity for an error to be made, because most architects and draftsmen don't give us that measurement on the plans that we receive, so staff has to calculate it. Well, that, you know, nothing. It just can add to the confusion, and then depending on how well the plans are drawn, and all those different factors involved. So if we just go, we're going to propose to go to the peak to the grade at the highest point anywhere on the building. That is the building height. I don't think we can make it any simpler, to be honest with you. And then we will also match other jurisdictions, which is always a good thing, so that if someone, contractor is going, or a draftsman from one jurisdiction to another, it's more in line, just like it is when we have the same year building code as we do other jurisdictions that are around us. It just makes things a little more smoother in that operation. So what we're proposing as staff is go to a 35-foot maximum height, which takes into account the mean and then a little bit above it. So we're at 35 would be our maximum height, and then still have the opportunity, if you want to go higher, with the CUP process. And that's at standard setbacks, which is basically your 20 in front, 20 in rear, 7s on the side. We also came up with another idea to help out, and if the property owner is willing to locate the structure a little bit further back from the setbacks, the standard setbacks, then we can go 40 foot high. The way Homer did an excellent job explaining this to me, that when you stand on the road and you look at a house that's 20 feet back at the height, and then at 35 foot, or you push the house back at, I forgot what the next, excuse me, just a sec, it's 30 foot back, a 40 foot height, it's the same angle of view. It doesn't change. So it's not looking like the house is just, ginormous sitting there. It's the same angle from whatever point you're standing at because of that extra 10 foot putting it back on the property. The expanded setbacks, increased setbacks would also be on the rear and on the sides accordingly. We think that is an opportunity for some of these homes that are on these hillside lots, and that would help reduce the number of times we come see you all. Even though we enjoy coming to see you, it still would help reduce your docket and allow staff to be able to handle these situations without having to go and have the customer go through that extra step, that extra cost, that extra time period of going through the CUP process. It's our goal. We also changed the definition accordingly to show that it go to the roof peak and that it wouldn't include chimneys, it wouldn't include air conditioning units or heaters or whatever it may be that are on the roof. It actually have to be something that deals with the floor square footage is what would encompass the roof part. Look like you got a question.
I'm working on one.
Okay, awesome. That's really the most common way to measure building height is to the roof peak instead of this means thing that we were been using. What I would like to do real quick is bring Randy up and explain to you from a building side, from the building department side, why staff feels this is the proper way to go. So, Randy, all yours.
Good morning. So, as you know, we've had issues with this in the past, and so we've changed a few things. Means different things to different people. And when you have different roof peaks, you have a 512, you have a 312, you have a 1012. Well, that means changes. And to be honest with you, contractors don't care. They want to build it, get it up there, get it out. Well, that's great, except now we guys got to make sure it complies. So staff has changed some policies to help prevent any issues coming up. Now, when someone brings a set of plans across the counter, we actually sit there and measure it with the applicant. We take this ruler out there and say, okay, you're at 30 feet, you're good, which is fine, but then you get out to grade, that changes too. So not only do we measure right there, we actually have them sign a bright orange sticker on the plans that says they understand that it finished at C of O time. The height is going to be measured from here to here, and this is all they're allowed to go without moving forward. We also check it during plan review. So now we've had 3 specifies. Then my inspectors are going out there and are actually measuring as they can, which, to get to the means, it's kind of a speculative thing. You can climb on the roof, measure this piece, you can come up with a line, but now we're hanging off the roof, trying to drop a tape measure and everything down. It just doesn't work. So now we're going from the lowest grade to the highest point, and we actually have laser rulers that we sit there with the contractor. We shoot the bottom of the roof down from the grade. We all agree where it's at. Sometimes they might have to bring in and adjust the grade. Sometimes it's not an issue at all. But it is so much simpler, trying to get that calculation out just confuses people. So going from lowest to highest just makes it all simple. Everyone understands what that means from an applicant, from an owner. An owner says, oh, I want scissor trusses. I want this and this. Well, they don't understand what that does to their final product, really, especially when they're drafting it up or, they give it to a draftsman and he just starts drawing pictures for them. Oh, yeah, that looks good. And they don't quite understand what that does. And like you said, like Scott said, In the northern part, there are no flat lots. They're all gone. You know, those were the easy builds. So now we're all on these slopes, and some are pretty substantial. So this just makes it easier for everyone. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board. So that is it on the building heights and number of stories. So we didn't talk about stories. Let's talk about that. Sorry. What we propose is to eliminate counting the stories. From the outside of a building, in the old days, you could count windows, how many windows, you know, on top of each other, and that would give you an idea of stories. Today, they put windows just about anywhere and anywhere. They put them in the attics. They put them in the peaks. They just, you know, so that's not a good way anymore. So if we limit the height of the building, say at 35 feet, then it will limit itself for stories because of the height requirement in a ceiling by the building code, and also your height of your floor system, what type of I-joist or floor joist or whatever it may be, I-beams you're using is going to limit, and your sheathing and all that is going to basically impact on how many stories you can get in a building, basically. So we're looking at, from the outside, you shouldn't be able to matter if it's 1, 2, or 3 stories. If it's at 35 feet and you have one story with a 20-foot peak ceiling, if that's your choice, so be it. I don't think we need to worry about how many stories they're putting inside the house any longer. That also follows some other jurisdictions. A lot of them, in fact, are that way. They don't deal with stories. Not to say that that's the way we need to go, but we like to look to see what our neighbors are doing as well and make sure that we're not out in left field doing something crazy. So let's see.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Sure, go right ahead, Supervisor.
That was really my question, Scott, was why would we care how many stories are in the building? Tim made a comment like on that one conditional use permit we did. It's, you see the exterior of the house and who knows, might be 5 stories in there, but who cares? And that's where I'm at, really. I don't see why we would want to dictate how many stories are going to be in that building if it meets our height requirement. So thanks for looking at that.
You bet. Any other questions before we move on to?
No, sir.
No,
happy to answer.
Just thank you, because we're only as good as our ordinances. And if our ordinances aren't working, we have to change them.
Yeah.
But that's not an easy thing to do. And so I thank you guys very, very much for working with these issues to bring to us to help make it better for your department and our constituents, because I know it isn't easy to look at ordinances and try and change them. But yeah, and like you say, as we go on these slanted lots, there's going to be sometimes 8-10 feet underground before you can even get your house out. So I think doing away with the stories is great. And so I appreciate all your work very much in helping us to change ordinances that are old and not working for us. Thank you very much.
You are most welcome. Any direction other than the direction we're going on building heights and stories? Anything else we need to make note of?
I think you're spot on.
All right.
Any other comments?
I would agree, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
Okay, great. We'll move on to one of my other favorite topics, pot-bellied pigs. As you recall, we had a gentleman down in the Deer Creek area going back a few years that wound up having 22 on a quarter-acre lot down in Deer Creek
And
Village.
a few dogs, too. Didn't
8 dogs inside the house, yes. So that got us thinking about that we need to do something about pigs in general and definitely pot-bellied pigs. So we did some research on other jurisdictions around us and such, and most of us, City of Globe, Town of Payson, all allow 2 pot-bellied pigs. And what I need to clarify on a pot-bellied pig and a regular pig or swine is pot-bellies can be anywhere from 70 to 200 pounds. There's no such thing as a miniature pig, they say. It's just, if somebody sells you a miniature pig, it's going to get big.
Because they're not
If you
feeding
feed it, it's going to get big. And a regular swine or pig is going to be up to 300 pounds. So some jurisdictions actually limit the weight of the pig. They'll say 2 pot-bellied pigs, no more than 100 pounds, no more than 200 pounds, whatever. That's something we can go that direction. My concern with that is I don't know the difference. If I could tell the difference between a 200-pound pig or a 300-pound pig, and without having have Steve come over with a forklift and lift it and weigh it, I'm not sure what we could do. So if we put that restriction in there, I'm not sure that there's a way we can enforce it, but just from a visual perspective. But I do believe we need to. It would be best if we would allow 2 potbelly pigs. They need a friend, so I think 2 is good versus 1. Currently, right now, if you have a potbelly pig, you go through the use permit process. And this gives an opportunity to the neighbors to have an input. If they have a for or against, we notify the adjoining neighbors. It's an additional cost and additional time period to do this. But the other deal is if the animals are outside, kept outside, even though we call them household pets, you can have a pen outside just like people do with dogs and such. There's a certain setback from the sides they have to be, and also then they need to maintain the health and the smell and all those things that code enforcement would then, and health department, if it's one of those extreme situations, animal control would have to deal with, or the state livestock inspector, I guess, involved when it's regular pigs and such, is the way I understand it. So we're proposing to allow 2 potbelly pigs under the same conditions as we allow dogs and those kind of things and all those other type of household pets versus right now where we go through that use permit process. Any comments on that?
Sure. So I think, Scott, the one where the owners are required to maintain the pig and pens in a healthy environment, to me, that's number one. I mean, that's key right there, whether you have 1 or you have 10. 1 pig can stink just as bad as a whole group of them if you let it. The other question I would have is we're mostly talking about household pets or pigs for household pets, but this will also be for regular domestic livestock type pig, right? Regular pig?
Supervisor Klein, Mr. Chairman, yes. What we did was we're changing the definition of domestic farm animals to include swine, pigs, hogs. Right now they're in the livestock category. So we're moving everything into the domestic farm animal, and you would still, for a regular pig or more than 2 potbelly pigs, regular pigs, potbelly pigs, more than 2, roosters would all require still a use permit. We want to be able to give that opportunity to the neighbors to have input. Do you want to live next door to someone with roosters? Those are the ones we get the most complaints on, are roosters. That they don't seem to just crow at dawn anymore. They just do it whenever they feel like it. So we get in a congested area, in a small subdivision or a small area of private land, they cause quite a bit of work for the code enforcement folks. So we're trying to clarify that so that we're not saying you can't have a rooster. We're just saying that if you're going to have one, let's make a use permit and we'll give you a certain amount of time. And if you're not keeping it up, if we're getting complaints and all that, we can pull that permit and such. That answer your question?
Yeah, I believe we have a comment from.
Just from a legal perspective in drafting, if there were an ordinance that permitted 2 pot-bellied pigs, they can multiply pretty rapidly, so you might have 2 one day and 7 the next. What's the proposal for handling that situation?
Good question. I hadn't thought about birth control for pigs, sorry.
Well, yeah, no,
that one didn't come on my radar.
But the thing of it is when can they be weaned? I mean, just a suggestion, like if a baby pig can be weaned in 3 months, then okay, you can have 7 for 4 months. But then you got to go back to 2.
Mr. Chairman, that's how we deal with dogs right now. If you have more than 5 or 5 or more, I believe it is, we allow. It's one of our changes that it's going to be in the general draft is up to 6 months to allow the puppies to do, and then they move on. If you're going to keep all those puppies, then you need to get you were considered a non-commercial kennel if you have more than 5 dogs and such. But that's something we can look into
Yeah, pretty much the same thing. You know,
Yeah.
when they can be winged, you got a month and you're back
Yeah.
to 2.
Gotcha.
Because there's not a kennel permit for pigs, I guess.
No.
Okay. Anybody have anything else?
I think this is going to be quite a topic of discussion for a little while.
Okay.
You know, because there is a little bit of a difference, especially when we're talking about unincorporated areas too. You know, like Deer Creek's where we had the pig problem before. I get that. You know, you have neighbors that are right there. But there's areas in our county that there's not any close neighbors that close by where there probably isn't or wouldn't ever really be an issue until your neighbor half a mile down the road gets pissed off at you and causes one. You know what I'm saying? So when it comes to a lot of this, in my way of thinking, it's a hard topic to cover. It's a hard one to get in place, but it's going to definitely take some thinking on my part for it. But I appreciate you diving in there because we do need to do that. It's amazing what we get wrapped up in. But so thank you, Scott.
You're welcome. Just to recap that, there is still the opportunity to get a use permit for those properties if they wanted to have more than, they wanted a regular pig versus a potbelly. Then they could go through the use permit process. And I would expect that they would get very little feedback from the neighbors if you have 10 acres, those type of things, unless you wanted to put it right in the corner next to your neighbor type
Right.
situation, close to
Right.
them. But,
It's just that I've seen it, over and over again. Somebody's in place, and then somebody moves in an eighth of a mile down the road, and they have some kind of little problem, and it just goes downhill from there. And that seems like when we really get wrapped up in at the end, is somebody's turning them in.
that's the fun of zoning.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's
So.
always evolving into, yes.
Mr. Chairman, I got the official word from an expert in pigs that the weaning is completed after 4 weeks.
Then the
Then it's
barbecue.
2. Not 7, it's 2.
That was from Deputy County Manager Jackie Sanders.
She listening in and keeping you informed. That's good.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, go right ahead.
if I could address Scott,
Please.
Mr. Retired Buzan. So the only difference from what we currently have in this ordinance is that you're going to allow someone to own up to 2 potbelly pigs, not regular swine, without applying for a conditional use permit.
Use permit.
A use permit.
Supervisor, yes,
Oh, yeah.
use permit.
Oh, use permit,
Yeah.
okay.
The difference between, just real quick, if I may, use permit goes through, the zoning inspector approves it. They have a meeting, we notify the adjoining property owners, we have a meeting, and see if there's any feedback or pros, cons, or whatever, and then the zoning inspector makes the decision. And then the property owner, if it is doesn't like the decision, can appeal to the Board of Adjustment. Whereas the conditional use permit goes through the Planning and Zoning Commission, they make a recommendation, and we come to you for the final decision.
Okay. If someone has up to 2 potbelly pigs, as you're proposing, they still need to keep the odor down. They still need to address complaints that might be there.
Right.
So
That's where code enforcement would come in. If we started receiving complaints, then the code enforcement would investigate to see if the validity of the complaint, and then we would wind up, if they didn't rectify the complaint, wind up in front of the hearing officer.
okay, thank you.
So Scott, on something like this, code enforcement's the enforcement authority, or would be, I guess. But where does the Department of Ag come into it? Like your livestock inspectors?
From what I understand, they're involved like with the regular swine. We had a case down in, I believe it was either Tonto Basin or Gila, where they had a gentleman just let his pigs loose and threw them out in the forest, and they were running around doing all kinds of crazy things. And we were told to go to the state livestock inspector. In fact, I believe it was Terry with your executive admin that provided us that information. it was a little confusing when they get involved and when they don't. That situation wound up where we didn't have them come in because the gentleman rounded them up and took care of them one way or another.
Right.
But something we'd have to look into more. Yeah.
So if it's just a normal case like we had there in Deer Creek, our livestock inspectors wouldn't be involved in something like that.
Be honest with you, I don't know if we ever even approached them on it. We took it as a zoning violation and proceeded that direction. I don't recall actually talking to the livestock inspector over that.
Because I know that they take a lot of calls on like horses that aren't fed, that are starving, and cattle that are mistreated or whatever like that, in backyards. That's a lot of their calls today is those backyard calls.
If I may, let me ask Terry. Terry, do you recall if it involved potbelly pigs when you were dealing with that?
I don't think that we involved them at that point because I don't think that the livestock inspectors covered potbelly pigs. They covered regular swine, which is why we brought them into Gila, because that guy's pigs were not potbelly. They were big, giant.
Did you catch that? Not a word. Okay. Okay, so those were more or less the domestic side is what they were after then on that one.
Yeah, we believe the inspector didn't deal with potbelly pigs or pets per se. Folks with potbelly pigs are adamant that they are pets. They're not your normal farm animals. They're pets. They name them. They do all that kind of stuff.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know if we have a cattle inspector at this point, do we?
We do.
Oh, good. Good.
We do, and more recently, since COVID hit, I've kind of backed off, but I've been working with the Department of Ag and their livestock inspectors to look at cross-designating some stuff with our county sheriff's office.
Oh, yeah, no, that's something we've been
And
working on since.
Adam's been involved and
Good.
everything like that. So I'm hoping that one of these days there's a chance of doing something there. But when you look at this, and all swine is defined as livestock, then actually that would fall under their realm too.
Well, that's in our zoning ordinance.
Okay.
We define it as livestock.
So do you know if the state considers pot-bellied pigs as livestock?
I don't know. I'd have to check. Yeah.
Okay.
I can't believe we didn't check, but it's been so many years, I don't recall what their answer was.
Okay, any further?
Okay, one more hot button topic, and that is RV parks is our next one that I'll talk with you about. And then I'm going to have Michelle come up and talk to you about a lot of that red you saw on the handouts is the changes to the ordinance about the formatting and those kind of things. But so let's talk a little bit about recreational vehicle parks. So currently in the zoning ordinance, if you have 2 or more RVs on your property, you are considered an RV park. And you would need, for an RV park, you would need to get what we call a T district overlay. And that T district overlay is what sets the spacing sizes and those kind of parameters to have an RV park so that you're not on top of each other type deal. We have, through the years, we have been in contact with folks that, especially down in the Tunnel Basin area, lots of RVs down there, lots of hunters and fishermen and those kind of things, and family folks that just have them. And what we found is limiting them to 2 or 1, basically, hurts those folks like, I have a friend who's a hunter. He has a truck camper, which counts as a recreational vehicle, and then he has the family bumper pull, the tag-along trailer. And if he had both of them on his property in Tunnel Basin, he's basically an RV park. We don't go looking for those. We're reactive, not proactive. But once again, as you mentioned earlier, when neighbors get sideways with each other or such, then they'll file a complaint and code enforcement goes out and does their thing. So what we would like to propose is 3 or more RVs would constitute an RV park. We would also clear up the wording so that it makes no difference if it's a commercial use or residential. Say you have 4 members of your family that all have trailers. They want to convene on your property down in Tunnel Basin for once a month or whatever the time frame be. That's really not a commercial use per se, per the definition, but we would want to include that too because it still causes the same amount of traffic, noise, dust, those kind of things, and just the visual. If you think about it, if you have your site-built home next to an empty lot, you spent good money, you're paying your property taxes, you're doing everything, you know, that's asked of you, and then next door, 4 RVs pull in, and they fire pits, all that stuff every weekend, and they just, you know, and you start, we get a lot of complaints on those type of things. So we regulate the best we can, so we're trying to tighten up our regulations so it makes more sense to the public so they understand it better versus the way it's worded currently. But we also would like to allow them a better use of their property and go with allow them to have 2 RVs to park them. Now, I need to clarify, you're still not allowed to live in an RV full time. What it states basically in the definition is it's a temporary facility for camping, vacation, recreational, and all that. We don't say that you can live in an RV. And in fact, the only use district we have where you can actually stay in an RV that doesn't say you can't is our general unclassified district. All the rest of them basically state that you cannot reside in an RV even on the weekends or any time, period.
Do you know how many people you're talking about that, Scott?
Oh, yeah.
Probably a whole bunch of them pissed off on YouTube right now, too.
Yeah.
So let me ask you about that, Scott, because I see, you know, temporary living quarters. But when somebody has a piece of bare property, and occasionally, maybe not every weekend, but occasionally they come up and they bring their friends and they stay for a weekend, and they've got 5 or 6 of them parked there with their side-by-sides and kids running around and everybody having a grand old time for 2 or 3 days, and then they go home. They can't do that right now.
Correct.
Boy, you know how to step out at the right time, don't you?
Ooh, yeah. Can I introduce you to?
So I can hear it coming already. Okay, so I can see where if you say, okay, somebody just can't park an old RV on their trailer on their property and live in it, which I kind of wonder about that myself too, because it is their property. See, I guess what goes back to me, which makes it hard for me, when somebody steps out there and they buy a piece of property, I've always kind of liked the idea it was theirs, as long as they're not hurting someone else. And unfortunately, it goes back to the same old thing, neighbors doing this. And so I could see a lot of problems, because there's a lot of people right now in this last movement where all these properties are selling. There's a lot of movement where folks are buying property that are planning on retiring in the next 5 years. But they've got 3 or 4 or 5 kids, and they're coming up for weekends, and they're going fishing at the creeks, and they're staying on their property and stuff like that, and then going home. And a lot of times bringing their buddies and everybody along with them. So this to me is a tough one.
Right. Well, if I could, Supervisor Klein, you know, like I said, there is a GU district out there that they could purchase the property in if they did their homework prior to see that they could do just what you're saying without a primary residence. I should point out that to store an RV, you need a primary residence already on the property.
Stop right there a minute.
Okay.
Okay, so that's going to go back to where do we get our addresses and all that to get a residence in place. You see what I'm saying? We have a lot of vacant land that we don't have addresses for, but they're being used. You know, the land is being used. And so all these things are going to have to come together. We're going to have some real major issues coming up that I see, you know. But go ahead.
Well, and if I may, we have those other tools available that we could put into the ordinance of a use permit if we wanted to allow folks to have multiple RVs to stay in them on a weekend or a week at a time or whatever it may be. We have to be careful with time limits because we have no way to enforce those or even check them. You know, we don't sit there in our truck out on the road and go,
right.
You know, yeah, you were here at 9, you left at 3. Does that count as a day? You know, that type of stuff. You know what I mean? But we have those tools in our toolbox to use where we do give the neighbors an opportunity to have input. And are they the neighbors that don't mind RVs around next to their site-built home, or we can just allow it to, change the ordinance to allow it. But currently, you are correct.
Did you throw that in there just to get our attention real quick,
Yeah.
Scott? Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just see. I don't know. I just see some issues coming up on a lot of this. I really do. And this one's going to be a hard one because I can already see the arguments and the problems,
Sure.
And
Well, I opened this with it said it's a hot button topic, so.
yeah, and
I
that's
didn't
only
want to
that's putting it mildly.
I didn't want to disappoint.
Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, go right ahead.
Scott, you and I have talked about this, and I've expressed concerns as well. Not knowing what the current ordinance is, and now you're describing the current ordinance and what it involves and what it entails, and you're recommending to go up one more trailer. And so I got to say I'm sympathetic to Supervisor Klein's approach and attitude toward it as well. You can't stay over on a weekend. There's got to be a primary residence. You could literally drive across the street into the national forest and do all these things, but you can't do it in the lot that you're in because you might be offending another neighbor that lives in Tonto Basin. You know what I'm saying? Where this is like the Wild West, and they don't like to be told what to do and that sort of thing. So I'm struggling with it too, as well. It seems very restrictive, not just mildly. That's my thoughts.
If I may, Supervisor Christensen, also, we have to be careful going forward if we do a change like this, is you have folks that purchased a property, you may have a folk, that because they don't allow RVs next to them in that span of land that's sitting there private or so. So we, it even opens it up even more of a dicey issue.
Yeah, there's two sides to that story, definitely, Scott. When you really think about it, because there are people that, look at it and say, oh, this is going to be a nice, quiet little chunk of land right here. And next thing you know, there's 5 RVs parked and 10 side by sides and people running all day, all hours of the day and night.
Down the road, making dust, making noise. We run into the same issue, not at a grand scale, but with manufactured homes too, where they can be and can't be. Some folks are adverse to manufactured homes. Others, to me, they look as nice as the site built today, but others really are against them in their neighborhood. So.
Right. And one of my biggest problems on a lot of this is I'm not a fan of HOAs. I do not like HOAs. I'm just going to tell you straight up. And when you start things like this, it almost gives you an impression of an HOA, on property that you wouldn't think would be. So I think there's a lot of work. There's a lot, I think, back and forth and talking with you and you guys about and working this one out.
And working with Mr. Dalton to make sure that, what
it's all going to be your fault, Jeff.
That's why I brought staff. I'm going to blame them. It is a, you're going to have winners, you're going to have losers type situation. That's a lot about zoning is that way. It's just, unfortunately, you can't please everybody. You do your darndest, but it just is a tough one. But I know, I will admit, it is very restrictive right now, and it makes a lot of folks aren't happy with us when we spread the news to them.
I think this is good, having this in a work session where we can sit here and talk about it and look at it and share our thoughts on it. That's a start. That's a lot better than it being in front of us on a regular agenda to vote on.
We need your input. To see, because it puts you guys, gentlemen, in the hot seats, and that's not our intention. We want to move forward with the way that you guide us to move forward. That you're comfortable with. So.
Well, where I'm at is you wouldn't be here today if you didn't have a recommendation.
Right.
And your office is the one that answers all the complaints. So Well, you kind of came to us with a problem, and it feels like you got some gas thrown on your fire. So, I'm here to support you in your recommendations because you're the one that has dealt with this for years and have the phones ring every day for either not being able to use your property or somebody misusing their property. And so, if you feel that 2 or more, I think that's a good deal. If that's where you think the complaints or the majority of the complaints you have been getting, if you think that changing those ordinances in that way would help your department and help us as far as making constituents happy, because you're the one that takes all the phone calls, not me. So I would say, yeah, if you feel like the increase is necessary, I support it. Because the thing about ordinances is they're hard to change, but in a year from now, if they don't work, we can change them again. So that's the neat thing of it. And so if you work towards bringing us a recommendation to discuss with you, I support your recommendation because you're the one on a leash law or anything else. You're the ones that are taking a lot of the building complaints and things. So if you bring me a recommendation, I feel good about that recommendation. Or you wouldn't have brought it to us. You'd have put a lot more thought in it. Or it's complaint based that you brought to us. So
Thank you. Yes.
so that's kind of where I'm on it. And yeah, can we fix all the problems? Well, no, but if we can adjust them a little at a time, because all these ordinances, if we just change a little bit of it, well, probably the whole ordinance needs attention. But we got to hit our hot spots first, and so I appreciate you looking into it and bringing the recommendation because, like I say, I support your recommendation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To give you a little background on why some of these items are included, obviously, I hope we've talked a lot about the building heights and stories. That was really our big ticket item. So to do that, we had to go through all the use districts and change all that. And if you call in your packet, we made a table. So that'll be so much simpler for folks and for staff to be able to reference a table to, instead of going here, in that document, and like they do today. That's very hard to follow and very easy to get lost and make a mistake. So we put it in a table format, so it's going to be, and each of those use districts will send you to that table to find out what the setbacks are, what the building height is, and what the exceptions are. Down at the bottom, there's footnotes. But the idea was we have to go into each of these use districts and change all this information. So while we're in there, we might as well hit some of these other things that are causing heartache and heartburn to either us or to, more importantly, to the public, to make it a better understanding. Our goal is always to make it a better document. And that is a huge task, as Jeff and I have had multiple conversations trying to work this document into something that is not only acceptable legalese-wise with state statutes and such, but also in what the board has approved previously, but the direction we need to go with it to make it a better document. And it's a big mountain to climb.
Scott, and it is, and I do thank you and your guys for diving in this to work on some things. When the height restrictions was a no-brainer to me. I mean, that's easy. The changes there was easy. The pigs, a little tougher, but you saved the best for last. And so I'm a little different than Tim. I have my constituents, I get around and talk to them a lot and have a lot of different meetings with them. Something like this is an item that I could throw out there and say, what do you think? How do you guys think this would fit? We got a lot of new people moving in that may want it more restrictive or something, or whatever it is. I mean, when it comes to things like this, I think it's good that our people know what we're looking at. And like right now on YouTube, how many we got on YouTube? 22. So, we got a few folks, but 22 out of the whole county isn't very much, and so And I agree with Tim. You know, we do things like this, and if it doesn't work, whatever it is, whatever the makeup of it is, we come back and we change it. That's the beauty of these things. And so, I want to applaud you guys for diving in here to do this. I really do. It's just a lot of this right here is going to take some time for me to think about.
Understood. If I may ask, can we have your blessing to proceed with the building heights and stories part of this equation? Because that is that's really our main ticket item. We need to get cleaned up to, or would you like us to come back and present more information on heights and stories?
I support your building height information.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I would concur with that. I think that's a good proposal.
All righty.
I'm sitting here watching Jeff give me the look, so I'm not sure I want to talk yet till I hear what he has to say.
Since it's scheduled as a work session item, the public may not be anticipating a vote regarding this, so I would suggest that the board refrain from taking a vote.
Okay.
Chairman and board members, may I? We're looking for input. Every one of these stories has two sides or more to it, okay? And the pigs and the RVs, they're critical items. And if we relax it, it's more difficult to unrelax it, to bring it back to where it was. It's always easier to allow more. It's difficult to take it back. So if we make decisions on those two, they're permanent decisions, so to speak. We can undo them, but they're very difficult. There's a process that perhaps we haven't talked about. One of them is we need to bring these kind of ideas also to the Planning and Zoning Commission, get their input. But we probably could have a virtual town hall on these items. And based on what we hear from the virtual town hall, based on what we hear from Planning and Zoning, we could come back to you on a second work session and says, here's everything we've heard. And then take the conversation, take it back, and then come to the board with a revised ordinance based on everything we hear. The building height is urgent, but as Randy pointed out, the team has found a way to work with the poorly worded, very difficult to measure building height that we have today. And we can survive a while with that, but we just need to fix it. But can it wait for us to go through these other steps to reach out to the public? Yes, and that I just wanted to offer that to you.
Well, on that, Homer, why can't we address that in a regular agenda item? You know, bring it up in front of us on that part of it, the building height. And get that one behind us.
We can go that route as well.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, if I may, to change the zoning ordinance per the state statute, it has to be presented to the Planning and Zoning Commission first, and then the commission makes a recommendation, and then it comes to the Board of Supervisors. So we have a bit of a path to follow, and lengthwise, time-wise.
Well, if that's the case, Scott, it shouldn't be any problem to get it in front of us on a future meeting then, huh?
No, sir.
Okay.
No, that's why I just wanted to get some clarification. If we could proceed with the building heights, or if we wanted to wait and try to do the whole package, this part of the package. Obviously, the whole ordinance is even a bigger package, and that we have been working on for a while now. But I just was trying to get some guidance, get some input, as Homer said, so that we know whether or not we're heading down the wrong path or not. And because obviously I don't want to waste staff's time going a direction that you won't support, and go. We want to, the best bang for our buck type situation.
You bet.
Okay.
Okay, so last part of this show is I want to bring Michelle Dahlke up. Michelle is our senior planner, and she's basically the glue that holds all this together on a daily basis, dealing with the public, dealing with P&Z Commission, dealing with the Board of Adjustments, previously dealing with me, and Assistant County Manager, all those folks. And I want her to just kind of talk to you briefly the importance of, since we're going into those use districts, as I mentioned before, and doing some changes, why it's important to make some of these changes to make it a better document at this opportunity, and whether or not you support that. So, Michelle?
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Chairman and Supervisors. Just wanted to take just a few minutes, like Scott said, to explain why some of these administrative changes are important to us. And what I'm talking about are all of those strike-throughs that Scott was showing you on the zoning ordinance changes that he's worked really hard on. And that means making it more effective and user-friendly, not only for staff, but really the county as a whole. Currently, our zoning ordinance has inconsistencies in it. There's terms that aren't defined, for example. There's sections that aren't consistent with one another with respect to our processes and procedures. And I just had a few examples to share with you on what I'm talking about. One, for example, is in all of the residential use districts, a conditional use permit is required to go over the height limit of 30 feet. But in the general unclassified zoning district, it's a use permit. And those two are completely different processes. The use permit is strictly a staff level review, and while there is neighborhood notification, it's not the same as a conditional use permit, which is essentially the same as a rezoning, which goes through what Scott was saying, Planning and Zoning Board and yourselves. So that's a big difference. And to have that be consistent, we thought was important. Also, the fact that the sections often refer you to other sections and then further subsections and further into more sub-subsections, you're really flipping back and forth through our zoning ordinance to really find out what is permitted and what is not. And that's not only challenging for residents who maybe have never dealt with zoning in their lives. And it's an important thing that they have to deal with sometimes when they're purchasing a property or trying to decide what they can and cannot do. It's really challenging. But for us too, not only with planning and zoning where we help people interpret the code, we help enforce it, but also our code enforcement department really has difficulties with this too. They have to come to us a lot. Say, what does this mean? It seems like it conflicts with another section. Our building safety division as well. So all of us under the community development department would benefit from these small changes. And also just the fact that a lot of our residential use districts define a single family residence as a permitted use, while others call it a single family dwelling. And that might not seem like a big deal, but it really is, because they mean different things. And I think Mr. Dalton would agree. Fine details matter, and to make sure that we're consistent across the board. These are some of the things that we're talking about. And then just general formatting issues as well that we found when we really dug into that ordinance. Some numbering differences, even some font differences. Minor, but why not tackle those right now when we're going through this whole process? So I just wanted to share with you a little bit why these small things really can make big changes and help the community as a whole. Thank you.
Michelle, if I may, Mr. Chair, when was the last time our zoning ordinances were reworked or revised or whatever?
Gosh, Scott, how long? It's years. I believe 2014 was the last time we really took a look at them.
Okay, so it really wasn't that long ago.
It seems like a long time ago, but right. In the whole scheme of things, you're welcome. Any other questions?
No, I'm fine.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. So I just want to point out, supervisors and Mr. Chairman, that what Michelle was talking about is not really changing the content in a sense. We're just putting it in a different place. We're cleaning it up. We're polishing up. You know, we're making it showroom ready type situation. We're not looking to the 2 versus 3 type situation. We're not changing those kind of things. We're changing so that we have the same definition for when we talk about a single family residence or a dwelling, whichever one we went with, so that whatever use district you're reading and looking at, it means the same thing. And not sending you to 6 different places to get lost and get irritated.
Thank you. Is that pretty much lined it up?
I'm sure you're tired of hearing from me. So I thank you very much for your time and your valuable input. And staff will get to work.
Hold on just a second. Supervisor Christian, any comments?
Appreciate the presentation, all the work, a lot of work. So, Mr. Chairman, can I ask you a question about, or perhaps Mr. Dalton, the process of directing the department to proceed or not proceed with the recommendations and proposals presented? You said we're not going to vote on it. I understand that. Can we direct?
It's a little bit of a vague situation, but I think the department gets a sense from hearing all the comments from each supervisor. They can sense the direction.
Okay.
Because of the questions being asked and the comments being made, they get a direction from where to go from here.
Okay.
If they're not getting it, then I think they should say that. Say we need more comments because we're not getting a clear direction on what you want us to do. Since you're not taking a vote, there need to be enough expressions of comments by the various members of the board so they do have a feeling about which way they need to go.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. Thanks. Did you have any concerns?
No, I definitely
Okay.
have an idea what the board wishes us to proceed with. A big idea.
Supervisor Klein, you have any comments?
Scott, just thank you. I want to thank all of you for diving in there and doing this. This is a big job, and I'm sure you're going to make it better. So I really appreciate it.
Our intent, sir. Thank you. Any other questions for me?
No, just one, and you might kind of just step to the side a little bit, because I believe. Whoa! Don't run completely away. I think Assistant County Manager Homero Villa would like to say something to you.
Chairman Humphrey, Supervisor Christensen, Supervisor Klein, I think we have Deb Bradway and Payson that would like to first make a few words in behalf of the Payson team, and then I'm going to follow her when she gets done.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and board members and Homero. From the staff of Community Development, we'd like to say we're saying goodbye to Scott as our director. It's been a sad day to say goodbye to Scott. It's been our honor to work with you over the years. Scott's been a cornerstone of our department for many years. In his 16 years of employment, he has helped make this department what it is today. His leadership, his dedication, knowledge, his sense of humor has helped our department through ever constant changing and often challenging times. And he has made us all better people. The respect he shows for both his employees and the customers has been top notch. We want to thank Scott for all he's done for our department. We wish Scott and his wife Michelle the very best in all their new chapters in their life. We thank you, Scott.
Thank you, Deb. Everyone in the room know that Scott is retired, right? Even though he was up here today as if he were not. And I want to thank him for that, for coming here and making this last presentation. Didn't have to. He did it. And he did it for a reason. And the reason is that he really cares about his team and he really cares about Gila County. Yes, we've hired him to work with us as a consultant going forward. We need him for a transitionary time. But he didn't have to be here today. He could have started. He could have said, I'd take a week off or whatever. But that's not Scott. Tremendous leadership and tremendous work ethic. Many times I've received reports from Scott on a weekend that speak to his work ethic. I wanted to say a few things, and it's going to take me 2 or 3 minutes, so please bear with me, okay? Scott's position. I wanted to talk about the position a little bit, and because it refers and has meaning about his leadership qualities, okay? Code enforcement, okay? What is code enforcement? It's he's played neighborhood umpire in so many of our neighborhoods and communities, where he tries to make the neighbors be neighbors again. That's all we're trying to do is just work with each other. That's a difficult assignment. We talk about building safety, and it really is about safety, whether it's flood, fire, access, or structural. This is work where we care for the community. We're doing this really for their benefit, to prolong their investment. Building safety, he's expert, by the way, on building safety. Wastewater, a lot of science in wastewater. But there's art also, and the people that have worked with him have learned how to feel the soil, because you need to get dirty. You need to get dirty. So there's some art in wastewater. And then planning and zoning. It's about making our communities harmonious. Okay? If you could just remember one word, that would be it. And so this is a difficult assignment to give someone that says, take care of these things for me, for Gila County, for the community. Take care of these things. There's a lot of human interaction in here. If I could say one thing about community development, it has a big public face. Oftentimes, many days, there's more than 100 interactions with the public that take place just on that one day. Okay, they're dealing with the public all the time. And so the job description also speaks about leadership. And that's what Scott brings to the table, a leadership, a love of team, to develop the team, to work with the team, to be a team leader. I've seen it over and over again. And he aspires his team toward excellence. I wanted to talk a little bit about excellence in a minute, but I just wanted to tell you one thing. They say that a captain can sail a ship, any captain can sail a ship in calm weather. But it takes a great captain to bring that ship to safe harbor during a storm. And this year we've had the COVID storm. So let me tell you how Scott has brought his ship during this COVID storm. You've heard some of the things already. Single-family residential permits, you've heard they've gone up 57% in 2020 versus 2019. We deal with the public. They have to come in to get those. They have to see our face. We have to sign off stuff. We've done some electronic. But mostly it's people coming into the office at the counter during this COVID pandemic. The team has responded, kept the doors open, scheduled appointments, etc. And the service was as good or better than last year in terms of the amount of time it took them to issue those single-family residential permits. But everything else is the same thing. The floodplain permits, it's not necessarily something that falls under 100% under Scott, but he does receive those floodplain permits. 107 of them were issued in 2020. That's a 20% increase over last year. With outstanding performance on the issuance of those permits as well. Soil and perk testing, 165 of those permits, a 42% increase over the previous year. This is a team working under the COVID protocols. Wastewater permits, the same thing, 15% higher than the previous year. 150 zoning applications. You talked about use permits and conditional use permits. Well, that's what these are, minor land divisions, 150 of them. Through November of 2018, the Code Enforcement Group closed 280 code enforcement complaints. I mean, when you stack up those things one on top of the other, that's a great volume of work. And what about the cash register? How do we do on income? Scott presented that number, okay? The thing's going ka-chink, ka-chink, ka-chink all the time, $440,000 in the first 7 months of the year, 24% higher than the previous fiscal cycle. So the permits are coming in, and the public is paying for those permits. And the team has done this in a stellar way, best in class performance, actually. I've been measuring, and I've researched how to measure the permitting process. And I used to do it in other places. I've gone out on the internet, and what the community development team right now is doing, I would put up against anybody, anywhere today, okay? So thank you, Scott. Excellent performance on your part. Excellent leadership, okay? So Scott has had wore many hats with Gila County. He started off in 2005 as the chief building official, then went on to become a community development supervisor. And then what we're going to remember him as is the director of community development. And so thank you very much, Scott, for everything you've done, for your leadership, your service to the community, your team building, your teamwork, your work ethic. We are in deep gratitude, and you have our full appreciation. I want to take a gesture, a small gesture, a bag in a bag, yeah. You know, you kidded me about that bag a couple of times, right? So we're going to get you a bag. It's a Pendleton. It's something that was locally purchased here, okay? And it doesn't quite match your Hawaiian Friday shirts on payday, okay? But it has the color of our community, the colors of our community. And so when you come back to visit us, after you've smelled all those roses in your estate back in wherever you're at, you can put your laptop in there, your documents, maybe a few roses that you bring back when you come visit us, okay? But if that's not the case and we can handle everything electronically, that bag is for your traveling days. And again, it's a small gesture, but it has within it the full measure of our appreciation, our gratitude. Thank you very much, Scott. Wish you the very best.
Just real quick, thank you everyone very much. It has been my pleasure and my honor. And you know, a lot of nice things were said about me, but it's the staff, it's my team that made me look good. And I owe it all to them. I owe it all to management and the rest of the county folks that I've dealt with in the other departments and such. Everybody's just been tremendous. So I'll miss most of you. I won't say who I won't miss. No, just kidding. But I will miss everybody, and I will be, as I told my staff in an email over the weekend, I said, I'll remember you as long as I can remember who I am. So thank you very much.
And Scott, thank you, Scott. Thank you very much. And thank you for doing some consulting to continue to help us and allow your team to help you. Yes, Mr. Minlott.
Mr. Chairman, if I might take just a moment about Scott. Before, he was the acting or interim community development director for a number of years, and that's like go to a job, but you've got shackles on. Since he was appointed as the community development director, the department has soared in what the productivity is, the interface with the customer, excellent customer service. Scott is to be congratulated and recognized for that accomplishment alone. Early when I had come to work for Gila County, I happened to meet with Bill Rawlings. He is a resident of Tonto Basin, and he is a contractor. And we broke bread, and he said, I cannot do work in Gila County. He lived in Tonto Basin, but he had to go outside of the county because he could not get building permits, and the red tape and everything that was restricted was impossible to deal with. I met with him a few years later after Scott had implemented so many of these process changes and gone from 6 months or longer to issue a building permit to 6 weeks or less. It made all the difference, and Mr. Rawlings expressed to me, it was a pleasure to do business in Gila County once again. And so that is from Scott's leadership that brought that to us. Thank you, Scott. These increased building permits, the increased level of things that we have going on in Gila County is attributed to your team and mostly to your leadership. Without your leadership, the team doesn't go anywhere. So thank you, Scott. I just did want to express appreciation too that I don't know what the issues that come under the community development, but with all the zoning issues that Scott has had to deal with, the pigs and alcohol distribution centers that were not compliant with county zoning, they are significant. And a lot of that, the public comments, a lot of the negative rhetoric that was going on was lumped on to Scott. He bore it well, and he stood up and did his job without complaining, without having to. He did his job. And Scott, I thank you for that. I thank you for all your efforts with Gila County. have been a tremendous asset, and we look forward to utilizing all that you offer for as long as we can. But good luck and best wishes to a new season in life. Thank you, Scott.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I think we're still on a work session. We're going to go to 7B, but I think I'd like to take about a 5-minute break before going to the next, because I'm not sure when we open the can of worms of information discussion regarding the process of redistricting Gila County, it might take a minute. So I'm going to take a little break. Okay, we're back into order on work session item 7B, information discussion regarding the process of redistricting Gila County. And I can remember 10 years ago when they were doing this. And it's good to be part of a board that's going to look at it this time. So, Mr. Minlove, it's all you.
Thank you for taking that challenge on, Mr. Chairman. Redistricting, the 2020 census has been completed, and it's time that we as Gila County and you as the Board of Supervisors begin the process of this redistricting. We'll go to the next slide. Why do we need redistricting? It's constitutional from the U.S. Constitution that we have the representation of one person, one vote. And so we redistrict so that the population is fairly represented in Gila County. Now, the redistricting that you do is for supervisory districts. I believe last time, 10 years ago, that they included the community college district and did the redistricting for the community college district as well. There are 5 members of the community college district board. So it's a little bit different boundaries and that. Again, that the U.S. Constitution, one vote for one person. Next slide, please. According to ARS 11-212 is one of the statutes that refers to redistricting for the counties, that the Board of Supervisors shall meet at the county seat on or before December 1st. So that's the target date that we have, December 1st, of having our redistricting lines drawn and approved on or before December 1st. Following the release of the United States decennial census data and divide the county into 3, we just worry about the 3 districts provided in this article, which shall be numbered respectively districts 1, 2, and 3. The board shall define the boundaries and limits of each district and make the division equal or with not more than 10% difference in population. Next slide, please. So how do we start? How do we jump into this and begin? The county supervisors consider, adopt, and publish a list of redistricting principles. So this is what we will bring to you and have for you to adopt, to approve. What are the principles you're going to adhere to as we go through this process? Kind of the framework, the foundation for redistricting. Some of these principles are required, such as district shapes must be compact and contiguous. In Gila County, that compact, I'm not sure how we do that.
Continuous.
And contiguous and stuff too. Must avoid dividing communities of interest and must use visible geographic features like city or town boundaries. Some principles by choice, such as protecting the incumbency by allowing map drawers to know the residential addresses of current board members. So we can protect your, to a certain extent, protect your jurisdiction that you have been elected to represent to the greatest extent possible. But that is a choice that you make as a board that we do that. Next slide, please. So some of the examples of guiding principles and policies are representation. Electoral maps must follow the principle of one person, one vote, in which each district has a substantially similar number of people. Compactness. There should be a minimum distance between all the parts of a constituency. For example, a circle, square, or hexagon is the most compact district. Again, pretty much not possible here in Gila County. Contiguity. All part of a district must be connected at some point with the rest of the district. You can't take northern Gila County and add Hayden-Winkleman to a district. Preservation of political subdivisions. City or town boundaries should be considered when drawing districts to avoid splitting communities. Preservation of communities of interest. Geographical areas such as neighborhoods or unincorporated communities where the residents have common interests should be considered when drawing districts and kept intact. It's like taking Young and splitting it in half, where it's a small, tight-knit community, and trying to keep those types of communities intact within a single district. Next slide. Go back to one. Preservation of cores of prior districts. So if you've got a district now that Supervisor Humphrey represents Globe, Miami for the most part, Payson in District 1, and the whole east side of the county in District 3, that we do our best to preserve that core of who has been in the district. Avoid pairing incumbents. So if we went, if to do redistricting, if we went and put Young into District 1, that would be an opportunity that Supervisor Christensen and Supervisor Klein, you'd have to run against each other. We avoid that by this policy. Favoring or disfavoring an incumbent candidate or party group is prohibited. District lines should not intentionally or unduly favor a person or individual political group, such as using incumbent addresses, election results, party registration, or other socioeconomic data as an input when redrawing districts. That's an attempt to we can't use voting, but it's an attempt to make it fairly as equitable as we can among the different components of each district. And competitiveness. The Arizona Constitution states that to the extent practicable, competitive districts should be favored where to do so would create no significant detriment to the other goals. This criteria typically seeks to avoid the creation of safe districts for a political party or particular party. And next. Any questions so far? Okay. Who draws the new district boundaries? Redistricting is as much about a public process as it is about drawing lines. To go through this, if there are inequities perceived within the boundaries or the political lines we have for a supervisory district, they can be brought to the U.S. Department of Justice that a certain group is not being treated fairly. So there's an absolute open process, give the community and population every opportunity to have input to the process. To do this, we held a series of public meetings held to explain redistricting process, principles, and resident online mapping tool. So we want the public to give lots of input and have a participatory process that brings people in and their thoughts. After we do all that, taking that preliminary information, we will sit down and have preliminary or optional, different options of plans for redistricting. The second series of public meetings are held to display and seek comments on maps created. Many counties, and this is another choice that you will have to decide of whether to appoint an advisory redistricting commission to oversee administration of the public process. There's a group of 8, 10 people. I'm not sure exactly how many. Marion may know. Maybe not. I can't remember. 10 years ago, it's just like yesterday, but a group of people, not within regards to any particular political party, but just a group of people that is independent and will oversee the process of redistricting and hold these public meetings and take a look at everything, all the information that's available. Next slide. So when do we start the process? The first quarter of 2021, this quarter that we're in, the county supervisors consider, adopt, and publish redistricting principles, determine whether redistricting will be managed in-house or by a consultant, and if by consultant, draft an RFP, request for proposal, solicit bids, select, and contract with consultants. I was looking through the agenda items from 10 years ago. They used a company called professional consulting service contract. Oh, no, it is Federal Compliance Consulting LLC, and the cost was $105,000. So that's 10 years ago. It's quite expensive. But that's something to consider.
A
Yes.
question. Do you feel as if it could be done in-house?
Mr. Chairman, I think we need to take a look at that. That's a lot of money. And so we need to consider what the ramifications are, that it's a public process, that we do everything we can that we need to. But that is a lot of money for.
Yeah, and that was 10 years ago.
Yeah.
So think about what it'd be like now. But one of the questions I would ask, James, is do we know where our growth has been?
It's been in the northern part of the county.
That's what I was going to say. But, I mean, how has anybody really looked at the numbers?
No.
Yeah.
No. Supervisor Christensen and I were speaking about that yesterday, that it's more than likely that his district is going to shrink, and it'll be spread out more. So that's where the redistricting is going to have the biggest impact, I believe. The next line is April 2021, the Census Bureau releases the census data. We're at that time after, it says April 1st, we'll see, but sometime in April we'll get the census data, be able to take a look at it and start analyzing it at that point. So.
And elections has a lot of the other information that would help us in as far as party affiliated areas and things such as that, so that we can run more by the rules then.
Yeah. Yep. That's true. Any information that we are able to use, there are restrictions of using election data and registered voters, but to the extent possible, certainly the elections has that information for our use.
Sure. Okay.
So second quarter, beginning in April, that we hold the first series of public meetings on mapping criteria, solicit public feedback. Plans prepared by residents and staff are presented with a summary of community input to the county supervisors. And then in the third quarter, that would begin July 1st, I'll hold a second series of public meetings on alternative draft plans, final plan adopted by the county supervisors on or before December 1st, 2021. So as I've looked through the information and discussed this, the biggest comment is just public. Hold everything out in the public. It's a very, very public process, and no holding anything back. Make sure all of the information is available to everybody that wants to have input and have that information. That's the biggest thing, and that's what keeps us out of Department of Justice and those kinds of things. So, any questions?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you, James. I would like to hear, as we go forward, the pitfalls involved in doing this process ourselves. In other words, the possible legal ramifications if we make a mistake, disenfranchising a group of people or something like that. So if we just know what our risk is, we can make a decision.
Very serious concerns, absolutely, Mr. Chairman, Supervisor Christensen, and has to be considered. So absolutely. Next slide, please. Oh, that was the end. Seemed like I had about 10 more pages of information to provide, but that's the last thing we need today. So the person that headed this up 10 years ago was Linda Eastlick, who was at that time was the elections director, and she's just walked the process through all the way. Of course, Linda Eastlick has long since retired, and I don't know if she's in the county or even available to advise or give direction. I believe Cliff Potts and Mac Feeser on the north, I've heard that they were on the committee that was selected by the board to represent the county and go through this process. So we do have some in the county. You can look and see who that process is. Get those people that have been walked through the details of the process, come and have that discussion with you so we can be able to consider all things, all aspects, and making sure that this is done right and that it's fair and equitable to all people in Gila County. Marion was here as our clerk of the board in walking through this, and has some experience and expertise on Gila County. And also Jackie Sanders has some experience and expertise, and I'm not sure to what extent they were involved in this committee or what they did, but Jackie is up in Payson today, and would invite her, Mr. Chairman, with your permission, to provide any additional comments she might have.
Yeah, would love your input if, so go ahead, Jackie.
Sure thing, Mr. Chair and members of the board. And James, what you may not know is the gentleman sitting behind the computers there behind you also was involved and may have some good insight. Dave was in elections at the time, and he may have even gone through the 2000 redistricting, I thought so. So Dave may be a really good resource as well. Some of my thoughts, so I wasn't as closely involved 10 years ago. Linda had a greater role. But I do know that Supervisor Christensen brings up a really good point about weighing the risks of running it ourselves against the benefit of ensuring that we're compliant at the federal level. And the Citizens Committee was absolutely integral to this process 10 years ago and impactful in helping ensure that this was not a contentious or divisive process. It was a collaborative process. The Citizens Committee really worked well the last time in particular. So that was really one of my thoughts. We had hoped to have Mac Fezor here today, but he had to take a wife to a doctor's appointment. But he's willing to help share his thoughts and memory of and guidance of how this worked 10 years ago. He was not chairperson, I believe, that we had co-chairs last year, 10 years ago, but he was the statistician of the group that helped crunch the data and make sure that the districts, so some of those things that James listed off, sometimes you have competing guidance because you want to keep a community whole as possible, but you also have to make sure that the population is as even as possible. And so that is what has divided, for example, Payson proper. It's trying to keep the number.
At this point, until we get further into the conversation, have more information. And as I get more information, it'll probably answer a lot of questions that I have now. So, but thank you for your input.
Mr. Chairman, very involved process, and excuse me, Jackie, but this is just an introduction. There's a lot to this, and wanted to present it, have it before you, so that we need to have a process over the next 8-9 months to achieve our goal of having new lines drawn by December 1st. And I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, Jackie.
Go ahead, Jackie.
Mr. Chair, I'm sorry, Mr. Minlove, all I was going to say is we're going to have to make some decisions before we have the data, right? We won't have the data until April, but bringing it up as quickly as possible. We need to be setting some of these priorities to be ready for April.
So we're looking at perhaps further work session after we get that information so we can get something on an agenda to see how we're going to move forward with this. So maybe schedule work sessions around that time or a work session around that time to be presented with some more information.
Mr. Chairman, I assume that the next thing we need to do is to go ahead and have a discussion to present to you a potential list of policies and processes that we're going to follow, have you adopt those so we can get those published, and then follow up with additional information to do that. So I believe the next step is to get those policies adopted so we can give those out to the public about what's going to happen in Gila County.
So one question I would have too is, when are we going to determine whether or not we're going to do it ourselves or contract it out?
We need to be completed by the end of February, or this is February. Need to be completed by the end of February and make that decision really as soon as we absolutely can, because those that are doing this work, there was a person that worked with the Department of Justice and a Mr. Sissons that worked with the county previously, and a lot of counties in Arizona are utilizing that group to assist them, and it's a matter of them being able to fit an additional customer in.
So are they just like taking the lead on it with the county involvement, James, or are they pretty much just taking the numbers in the districts and going with it?
We still have to have that open process, and they just are taking the information from the public, everything that's committed, taking the numbers that we have, and then we'll put those into a software system to look at different boundaries and how it impacts. So they really have the software. If we were to do it in-house, we would have to acquire software that we can look at all the data, import and all that data into a system so that it can be able to look at the equity of the district. So we either would have to have purchase in-house software or have a group that's got the expertise and the software to be able to do it.
Okay.
Marion, did you have any comments, Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Manlove, no, not really. We do have an accurate history of everything that did come to the board. I know that when the Board of Supervisors established the advisory committee, each board member came, and if someone dropped off, so those things have to come to the board each time there's somebody appointed to the committee, and I'm sure I can gather up as much information as there is through our Agenda Quick system.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Chairman, due to my insomnia last night, I was reading through looking through the minutes and all the activity. It was a lot that went through the board. Marion, of course, is fabulous at taking care of that end of the work.
Mr. Chair and James, Dave, what do you think about this process and all that? If you've been involved, so. Yeah.
Yes, I've been involved into being part of the elections office because at the time the elections department was tasked with kind of taking the redistricting and putting it through its process. I do believe in both 2000 and 2010 we did have Mr. Sessons assist. He basically does this all the time. So he can take the numbers from the census and because it takes in consideration race and ethnicity, age. You know, they have to look at all of this data to try to come up with equal precincts. So I know back in 2010, at that time the board did also get outside help just to put all of the numbers together. We did have the public. We actually had the public asked to draw boundaries. We provided basically the county voting precincts and said, you know, based on this information, how would you draw the line? So we had that where we got input from the public. And then we brought those back to the committee and with board input as well, narrowed it down to so many different possibilities. And then, of course, went back out to the public and said, okay, we narrowed down all of our entries to maybe top 5, and then got more input from the public from that. And then basically, I do believe we had dwindled that down to the top 3 that then were presented to the board, and then the board voted on which 3 or which one they felt would be most representative of the requirements of having an equal population.
Thank you. Any other questions?
No, sir.
Dave, I got one more. How involved did the public want to be back then? I mean, were they really into it, or was there just a few?
It was, we had pretty much a certain group in both, pretty much across the, the county, but mostly in Globe and Payson, that wanted to give it a go, to say, okay, this is what the ones that, wanted to try to do their lines to say, this is what I think would be equal. We did get some that, we looked at them and it's like, well, they're not getting the true essence of what we're needing to do to spread the population, because we had one just offhand that I can remember where it took in some precincts up in Payson, came all the way down Roosevelt, and then took in Hayden Winkleman. And it's like, that's just not going to work.
Mm-hmm.
So, we do get, some that but we were taking in, whatever the public wanted to provide. And then basically going back with Mr. Sissons to say, okay, here's what we have. Then he kind of went and looked at the numbers from the census and said, well, yes, this could be feasible with the requirements that, we need. And then others that said, these do not meet the requirements at all. So that's, then that kind of weeded down some of the submissions that we received from the public.
Thank you, Dave.
You're welcome.
No further questions at this point?
Like I say, tons of questions. Well, it'll come out later. One of the questions I've always had is you have the whole eastern part with all 3 of the reservations in one district. It's like, but I haven't seen the numbers. I haven't seen how all that works out. But yeah, that's been my question for 10 years. Yeah. And so it'll be interesting to see the statistics as they come to us, as we go forward.
3 of you are front line and center in this process this year, so
Sure.
it's going to be an adventure.
Supervisor Christian, question?
Yes, sir. Yeah, I thought I had one. Oh, is there any possibility that we will not have to redistrict? You said it has to be within 10%.
I would say no, because you do have to adopt lines. Can they be exactly the same or very similar? Possibly. But you have to go through the entire process.
Okay.
And
Well, what I mean is we may not change the boundaries. Is there any possibility of that happening? You don't know yet because you don't have the numbers.
Don't have the numbers.
Right.
And so getting that one vote for one person.
Right. Well, there has been growth, obviously, in District 1.
Mm-hmm.
So y'all going to take away some of my turf. But it's possible if we're within 10% that may not occur, or much in a more minor sense.
That was one of the recommendations, things to adopt, is to maintain the core of a district that has existed in the past for years. And I think the intent is to modify it, unless there's some drastic reason to modify, the modifications should be minimal to maintain cohesiveness and representation. You obviously, the supervisors, you are from your districts, you know your people, and to maintain that representation is important in this process.
Supervisor Klein, anything further?
I'm good.
Okay, I guess we're just waiting for more information, to have more questions, to get more information.
Absolutely. Mr. Chairman, if I might go back to our county manager and board recall, did want to point out that the health department is reporting that we have, I believe, 3 days of clinics up in the Payson area, delivering hundreds of vaccinations for the coronavirus. We have that clinics this week in Tonto Basin and in Young. We have clinics in Globe, Miami this week, and there are hundreds of vaccinations that are getting distributed. This has been unexpected that it's people are very frustrated with this out there because of the limited number of vaccinations. We are still in the 75 plus. The state is giving conflicting information of go ahead and vaccinate 65 plus. We are following the CDC direction that we have received, and we are in the 75 plus population, giving first and second vaccinations this week. But again, there's hundreds of vaccinations and a number of clinics that we are holding this week to get that vaccination, get them in the arms where they belong. So I did want to point that out, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much.
You bet. Thank you.
Do we have anybody on? No comments on YouTube? Okay, and I guess we have none in Payson, and so if that's all from the board, then I will adjourn today's meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you for your time.